How hard was it actually for you to build the first version of your product? This comes from Kolhad. And let's see. Before I read the question, I can tell you the answer. Sometimes very, very much so. Sometimes not so bad, but sometimes it's really hard. All right, maybe you, like me, started building a relatively simple product as a way to make some extra income or even have the option to leave your 9 to 5. Hey, we just talked about that. Maybe while you were still brainstorming and planning your product, you thought, I can build this pretty quickly and start testing and selling. Yes, we all think that, and we're all wrong. How long did it actually take you to reach a first finished version of your product that was viable enough to launch? Was building the first version harder or easier than you expected? In my case, I have a co-founder working with me, and we build a solution that creates resumes, cover letters, and HR emails tailored to each job. Name of it. In our first discussions, we thought we could build everything in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. You're lucky if you have the design in 3 weeks.
That's optimistic.
But it actually took 2 months to get our first. That's actually not bad. 2 months for our first launch. I still think that's a quick turnaround for the first version, but it was definitely more than we expected. What I really didn't anticipate was spending so much time working with OpenAI's tools to generate our documents consistently. Even though it's amazing to achieve this with natural language, getting the resumes, especially to follow a design pattern, was tough and required a lot of trial and error along the way. Yes, without question. So, this was my do-it-yourself helper app. Remember that one in Bebo one? So the app was I built this probably in 2016, I want to say. It was, it's technically still out there today. I never shut it down. It doesn't work, but you can still download it on the App Store. It was if you're at home and you're working on something and you get stuck and you need help from an expert, so like you're trying to replace a faucet or something, and maybe the parts aren't exactly what you saw on YouTube and something isn't quite fitting, you could pick up your phone, go on the app. A plumber would video FaceTime, video you. It'd be almost like FaceTime. And you can show them what you're doing, what the problem is, and you pay by the minute, blah, blah, blah. And it was actually really cool. I thought it would take maybe, I budgeted about a month's worth of time, maybe a month and a half worth of time to build it. Wound up taking about 4 to build it, just to build it. Right. And that was pretty full time, right? There's a lot that goes into an app like that. You know what the hardest part was, though? It wasn't so much the technology and the code. It was all this stuff. So getting the bank accounts, right? When you have a bank account, they want to know everything about what you're doing. And if you're taking credit cards, forget it, which we were. So we had to explain to them, and there was nothing like it out there. So they had nothing to compare it to. So they're all, I don't know if we can do this. What if this happens? What if that happens? That's number one. Then there was the insurance issue with liability. So there were so many steps along the way that had nothing to do with technology that just ate up a lot of my time. But the technology, and I built this all on my own, but the technology itself was fun to build, but it took a lot of time to build it. And it never launched because I didn't know you at the time, and I didn't have a marketing partner, and for the life of me, could not figure out how to get the word out about this thing. And I just let it die.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I know. But I learned so much from building it. It's honestly a lot of the code I built is the backbone of some of the stuff I'm doing today.
What's interesting is, yes, I always think products take longer to do than anybody anticipates, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we think about this a lot in like software and stuff like this. How long does it take McDonald's to add a new item to their menu? How long does it take an average restaurant to add item to their menu, right? Like the product development process can be way longer than you think. Like I remember one of the restaurants I was working at, we were like a higher end restaurant. We only had, I want to say maybe 18 items on our menu, but we had probably made 7 to 8 iterations of every item on that menu before it actually went on the menu. That makes sense.
Sure.
Because we would make one and we're like, it looks good, presentation's
missing something,
good,
but yeah,
something's off, right? And if it was a base ingredient, you don't have the choice of just adding it. Like now you have to go back and remake it. Very rarely did any of the chefs come in and go, I got it. right? Like,
right.
And even if they said I got it, that meant they'd been cooking it at home.
It's almost like when musicians are making a band is making a song or something like that. They don't just come out, okay, here's the song, let's go, right? They're taking little pieces of it, putting it together with that idea and that idea. Same thing with food.
I just talking about that. I just found that apparently there's a whole thing on Amazon Music that are the demo versions of songs.
Oh yeah,
dude, I
some
love,
of my favorite bands have demo albums, and they're incredible. Sometimes they're better than the actual.
I know.
It's so cool to listen to, like where their heads were when they were making this music.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so much fun. Anyway, go ahead.
I think this is exactly it. Is everybody underestimates the time it takes to fully develop something and get it ready for launch. And I don't care if it's software. I don't care if it's pizza. Everybody underestimates the time, because just because you think you're good at it, when it comes to doing it on a work site, on a professional level, it always takes longer, because when it's yours, you start nitpicking at it.
Oh, everything. Right? You better.
And then you let someone test it.
Yeah.
Right.
And they find a little. Yep.
And now you have to fix that. Right. And it doesn't matter whether it's pizza or software. Like, you should not open a pizza place if nobody ever tasted your pizza.
Right.
Right. Like, it's kind of.
Although I've been to pizza places that sure as heck feels like that.
I'm pretty sure some of them actually did that. Right. There's a reason 80% of restaurants go under. But yeah, no, your initial product development, like we've been around since 2006. We're approaching 20 years. Mm-hmm. We are still fine-tuning our final product. Like, it never stops. I think that's the bigger thing is there is, I don't know anything other than, like, I don't know, rice or something like that. There is no final product, right? There's a product ready for launch, and then there is the ongoing development of your product. And I think that's kind of, like, it's same thing when we build websites for people, right? People go, "Oh, I think my website is done." No. Your website is ready to go live, right? But it's not done.
No, it'll never be done.
Right? Like, if you want to rank on search engines, you can't just build it and then think magically Google is going to start ranking you without you doing anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no, that's a starting point. I forget what. There's one of these online magazines or online newspapers. And I think they said for the first year, they posted 62 articles on average a day. And it still took them a long time to start getting their stories actually ranked and get into the Google newsfeed. But think about it, 62 stories a day.
It's a lot of news.
That's a lot of news. That's a lot of stories, right? And trust me, I'm pretty sure AP does way more than that. But if you are a small team of like 3-4 guys before the time of AI, where you could use that to help you write, that's a lot of work, right?
A lot of work, a lot of editing.
Is that product ever fully done? No. They just had something. They took it live.
Yeah, because then once you start getting the traffic, then you've realized how are my visitors using the website, and you're rebuilding that.
Correct.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So anyway, how hard was it? I think that's the wrong question. I don't think it's a matter of difficulty. I think it's a matter of figuring out what you need to do as you build it. Very, very, very rarely, if ever, do you say at the beginning of a project, "This is what I want to build," and that's what the finished product is. It never works like that. I mean, I know I've never been in a situation like that. No. It is never, "Here's what we want," and then that's exactly what you get at the end. Nope. It's constantly changing along the way, because you're learning things along the way. You're discovering things. People are giving you input. They better be giving you input and feedback, and everything changes. And I got to tell you, a lot of times, if the finished product is 50%, that's a lot.
Yeah, but I could see that in the software world.
Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah. So how hard is it? Again, it's not a matter of difficulty. It's a matter of just knowing what you want to where you want to be and what you want to get at with your product, and then also knowing that it's going to change along the way, and being flexible enough to do that.
And I think one of the things that probably one of the most important lessons I learned in business was evaluating feedback without it being direct feedback, right? So, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that is when we were in the restaurant world, one of the things we would do, my head chef would go back to the kitchen. We would do the dinner rush. Yep. Then he would stand by where the servers brought the food back to see how many leftovers there were on the plates.
Okay.
If certain plates had more leftovers, he would check what dish was it.
And that makes sense.
Right? And he knew if we were getting a bunch of leftovers back to the kitchen from a certain plate, we were putting too much of that food on the plate. We had to cut back what we were putting on it.
Or people didn't like it.
If it was always the same thing on the plate, like if everybody left the potatoes, then yes, it meant they didn't like it. But he was using it also for
he was
portion
trying to gauge
sizes.
portion sizes. Yeah, of course.
And it was, once again, nobody will tell you, oh, the portions are too big. Right? That is something you have to just know that, how do I check for that? Well, that's how you check for it.
Yeah.
Is there an item we're putting on the dish that people aren't eating? How do you check for that? Well, the only way to check it is the dishes that come back.
Yeah, it's true.
Because they won't tell you. Right?
Yeah, and someone who's, myself, never been in the restaurant industry, what a great idea.
Right?
Simple. You don't need to do crazy marketing analytics. Yeah. Just look at the plates that come back.
Correct.
What a great idea.
It's the same thing like with software, right? Like you build in a feature and you're like, oh, this is going to be our feature. And we keep hammering this feature. Well, if you don't actually see how many people are using that feature,
right,
you might be wasting a hell of a lot of time on a feature that, A, you don't know whether it's because people don't know how to use it,
right,
or it's a feature they don't want.
Or it's, useless, right?
But if you don't evaluate that type of stuff with your product, it's very hard to keep it moving forward.
Yeah, agreed. Entirely, yeah. All right, so Coelhod, Coelhod.
Oh, that reminds me.
What?
The story of MailChimp.
Yes.
Isn't it MailChimp?
I don't know. Which story are you getting to?
So they were developing something completely different. That software company, right?
Yeah.
And then they started looking at the data with, like, they thought they were...
I think it was MailChimp.
Huh?
I think it was MailChimp.
Yeah. So they were really a totally different software company.
Right.
They were doing something completely different. And then one day they started analyzing, like, where are users spending most of their time and money and all that stuff with us? And they went, on our email marketing platform, right? And they're like, we barely pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And that, because they actually looked at the feedback, that what were their users using rather than what do we want to develop,
right,
it ended up becoming what we know as MailChimp today. But nobody really, they didn't think they were in the newsletter business.
Right.
It's just, look up the story if you haven't. To anybody listening, it's a cool story.
I've definitely read that before. That's why I'm not positive if it was MailChimp. I think it was, but I read that probably, God, how many years ago. But I know that story. All right, so moving on. Let's see.
Remember that if you have questions or comments, please drop them below and we will prioritize actually answering the questions on these videos.